When I took my very first Caribbean cruise 18 years ago, I had no idea how often I would return. Yet here I am, 15 Caribbean cruises later, having travelled on every type of cruise line you can imagine, from megaship resort, premium and small ship luxury lines, to most recently an ultra-luxury one on Regent Seven Seas Splendor. I've seen the Caribbean from just about every angle, route and itinerary, but what's become more striking on every trip is how much Caribbean cruising is changing, and in ways most cruisers don't appreciate. Welcome aboard, I'm Gary Bembridge, and after coming face to face with some of the biggest changes yet on that recent cruise on Regent Splendor, I felt I needed to make this to help future Caribbean cruisers understand the changes and what to do about them and why. When I think back to that first Caribbean cruise I took in 2007, it feels like a different world now. Back then, it was almost normal to be the only ship in port. I stepped ashore to find uncrowded beaches, little local shops and markets, and no lines for taxis or excursions. The pace was slow and relaxed. The ports felt like real island towns, and even the busiest spots felt laid back. It was easy, it was quiet, and it felt genuinely tropical and escapist. But gradually, year by year, trip by trip, that's shifted. Today, the Caribbean feels busier than ever, and that's because of three key changes, including one that has arrived with huge implications in the last few years. First, there are many more lines operating in the Caribbean. It seems every cruise line sails there now. Even European-based lines base ships there in the season, including P&O Cruises, Cunard, Ambassador and Marella from the UK, and Mein Schiff and AIDA from Germany. Even when new lines launch, they have focused ships heavily on the Caribbean, including MSC Cruises, now with multiple megaships, Virgin Voyages, who operate all their ships in the region, Ritz-Carlton Yachts, and Explorer Journeys. Second, not only are there more lines, but all of them are sailing more of their ships there. Industry data shows over 150 ships sail in the Caribbean. That's roughly half of all the ships in service around the world. But not only are there more ships every year, those are bigger ships. And that's not just due to the launch of more mega ships like Icon of the Seas carrying over 7,000 passengers. Every line is launching bigger ships. For example, even Holland America's latest Pinnacle class, like New Statendam, carries over 500 more passengers than the previous Vista class. And new ultra-luxury ships for lines like Silversea and Regent carry more passengers than their existing ones. And even when new classes of ships are launched, they're being supersized when newer ones are launched. For example, the latest versions of Celebrity Edge class, Excel and Ascent, carry several hundred more passengers than the first versions Edge and Apex. This all means that even if the same number of ships are calling into port on any day as they used to, there can be thousands more visitors streaming off them. And this leads me to the third big factor on why it's exponentially busier. Cruise lines are still sailing to the same islands and ports as I went to 18 years ago. The itineraries haven't changed much at all. The western routes are still the same, the eastern routes are still the same, the southern routes are still the same. It's the same islands, just dramatically more people. This has led to cruise lines scrambling to find solutions, which has resulted in three changes that are reshaping Caribbean cruising and our import experiences more than anything else these days. First, they've been working with islands to create more places that ships can dock on existing islands. For example, on that recent Regent Splendor cruise, we docked at the Royal Navy Dockyard in Bermuda. This was created because of limits on the number and size of ships that could dock in the more attractive and convenient port of Hamilton. This area was developed, it was revamped as a destination really for cruise passengers, with most of the activities, shops and tour providers setting up there focused on serving a cruise passenger bubble. Jamaica too, for example, now has three major cruise ports. And the one built with Royal Caribbean in Falmouth that I called on when I was on Symphony of the Seas is essentially a curated shopping and entertainment complex for cruisers. Over in Roatan, another example, there are now two cruise-developed ports, Mahogany Bay, developed with Carnival Group, and Cox and Hull, developed with and used by Royal Caribbean and Norwegian Group lines. They have features like beach zones, smart bars, shopping plazas, restaurants, and entertainment venues. Again, kind of a cruise bubble. The problem is that many of these are also passenger traps focused on chain store shopping, cruise line control activities, rather than authentic Caribbean experiences. The second major change is even more dramatic, the creation of entirely artificial cruise destinations. Costa Maya in Mexico is perhaps the most famous example. It was built from scratch for up to 4 cruise ships to call on per day. It's an enclosed area with bars, restaurants, shop, pool, and various activities. But the third and most significant change is the explosion of private islands and private beach clubs. Cruise lines have realized that not only do they need places for all their ships to go with existing ports so full, but if they own and control the port stop, they can manage crowds, offer better experiences, and keep far more of our in-port spend. As a result, private islands have become central to Caribbean cruising now. Royal Caribbean has Perfect Day at Coco Cay in the Bahamas and Labadee in Haiti. Carnival Corporation has several used by their different lines like Half Moon Cay by Holland America mostly, Princess Cay and Celebration Cay, which is mostly for Carnival Cruise Line. MSC built and developed Ocean Cay in the Bahamas, and Disney has Castaway Cay as well. Norwegian Cruise Line has Great Stirrup Cay in the Bahamas and Harvest Cay in Belize. And now lines are moving into and adding more cruise line destinations in the form of private beach clubs. Virgin Voyages has its Bimini Beach Club, Royal Caribbean has the Royal Beach Club on Paradise Island in Nassau, and are developing Perfect Day at Costa Maya, Mexico, on land they bought around that cruise-created port. But the drawback of these islands and these beach clubs is important. The more of these curated spaces we visit, the less time we're spending in real local communities and the less genuine Caribbean culture we're experiencing. The Caribbean cruise experience is becoming more like a resort and less authentic, and many travelers don't really realize that until they're already there. Another huge shift, one that few cruisers are aware of or talk about, has been the changing safety landscape across parts of the Caribbean. But before that, if you're going on a Caribbean or any cruise for that matter, I can get you 5% off great port excursions. Simply look at shoreexcursionsgroup.com. I've used and recommended them for years, and now they've given me an exclusive code TFT5 that you can use before you check out. Avoid paying high cruise line prices for tours by checking out the tours shoreexcursionsgroup.com offers for your cruise. They often have smaller groups, lower prices, they have licensed local guides, ability to cancel, and importantly, a return to ship guarantee. Go to shoreexcursionsgroup.com, select your cruise, and you'll see all the tours by port they have for that cruise. After selecting the tours, use the code TFT5 where you see have a coupon code, click here, and you'll get 5% off every tour. Now back to those safety issues in the region. Many islands are struggling and suffering with economic hardship despite booming tourism on land and by cruise. The flow of more affluent visitors has in some led to an increase in crime against them, as actually within their communities as well. A few also sit on drug trafficking routes, and gang activity has increased in some areas. As a result, government travel advisories for the Caribbean and their ports on many itineraries have fluctuated over the years, sometimes dramatically. And they're surprisingly widespread these days. Right now, Haiti is at the highest travel warning level due to gangs and lawlessness, and cruise lines have stopped visiting there at all. And even Royal Caribbean private resort at Labadee is being avoided, certainly at the time of making this. Trinidad and Tobago and the Dominican Republic are at levels where the US government is advising travelers to reconsider visiting there due to crime, robbery, and sexual assault. Jamaica has similar warnings in place. Even hugely popular destinations like the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos are under advisories urging extra caution and care due to crime levels. On top of that, I've noticed a rise in unlicensed tour operators, particularly on beaches, offering jet skis, parasailing, snorkeling trips, and other water sports. Many of those are uninsured and unlicensed, which poses real risks to us. Taxi scams are also increasing, with drivers overcharging or taking passengers on so-called custom island tours that turn out to be a circuit of shops where they earn commission. These are things I rarely encountered 18 years ago, but see far more today. And then, of course, there's the explosion of shopping commercialization. Most mainstream resort style and premium lines cruising the Caribbean these days have onboard shop advisors. They place various maps, coupons and offers in your cabin for when you board. They run shopping talks and run various events both on the ship and in the stores in port. When I first cruised the Caribbean 18 years ago, I don't think these even existed. Now, these shopping advisors are not employed by the cruise line, but by third-party providers such as PPI Group, and their job is to drive passengers to certain stores in the ports that have paid to be in the cruise line shopping program. The stores and advisors use promotions like free charms to collect in each port from stores like Effie Jewelers to lure us in. The cruise lines are earning large sums from these stores taking part in these programs. These days, the cruise port areas are full of chain stores like Diamonds International, Effie, Del Sol Color Change. The same stores dominate every Caribbean port these days. Even chain bars are becoming more common. Over the years and trips, I've seen increasingly local shops and providers being squeezed out, and even shopping is becoming less authentic and unique, as in most of the souvenir shops, if you look at where the goods are made, they're usually made in China rather than by local craftsmen. There's another change that has become impossible to ignore too, I feel, and this is the weather. The weather seems to be becoming more volatile and changeable over the years I've been cruising the Caribbean. Of course, most of the time it's great, but the hurricane season seems these days to be longer, with ever more powerful storms hitting the islands with increasing velocity. At the time that I'm making this was just after Hurricane Melissa had affected my Regent Splendor cruise with Bermuda that we called on showing damage, and cruise lines were having to cancel stops in Jamaica due to the damage there. Several ships and routes were significantly adjusted at that same time to avoid the passing storm, and this happens increasingly. The same month I was sailing, an unseasonable cold front hit part of the Caribbean, and so some cruise lines are actually changing plans to visit other islands to avoid it. I also noticed when snorkeling on the trip that I was on recently, the coral reefs in both Grenada and Bonaire had deteriorated since I'd been there over the years. They looked as healthy and alive in the past, I assume to climate change and warming oceans. Despite all of this, the crowds, commercialization, rising crime concerns, changes in weather, the Caribbean remains one of the most appealing and magical places to cruise. It still has stunning beaches, beautiful sea, easy access from all over Florida, even Texas, New York, and even Europe, and that irresistible promise that I can escape cold, damp winters in Europe for sunshine and the warmth. And I love that we can cruise the Caribbean at almost any price level, from a tight budget all the way up to ultra luxury. That's not going to change. But what has changed is the need to plan better and be way more strategic than ever before. So join me over in this video where I show you how to do that and how to avoid traps that many people fall into. See you over there.